I'm here with Ben Orson from Orson Associates. Ben, thanks so much for coming along today. I'm really excited to have a chat with you about what you do.
Thanks for the opportunity, and likewise I'm looking forward to talking to you a little bit about our work.
Tell me about Orson Associates.
We're an industrial design consultancy, so we've come out from a background of designing all kinds of things, sort of from children's toys, a lot of phones, and then really over the past sort of 20, 25 years, my experience is really focused on aviation. So I've worked on some of the more prominent interiors for aircraft, people like Cathay Pacific, Singapore Airlines, Japan Airlines, and a whole host of others. I've kind of worked with and run studios in the UK, and then I spent a period of time. I was sort of picked to develop and run a design studio for a company called Safran, who are one of the kind of big manufacturing organisations. Yeah. And it was interesting to work, from a different perspective, looking at the same, looking at the industry that I was familiar with, but from the perspective of a manufacturer rather than as a sort of independent design consultant. So very, very good experience in order to understand that perspective and bring it back into the work that we do these days.
And how did you originally get into aviation, work in aviation design?
Yeah, my dad was in the RAF, I was in the cadets. I got dragged around Farnborough 100 times as a kid. I kind of just accidentally, took a role with a company that was developing some interiors or pitching some designs for interiors for Singapore Airlines, and then we were lucky enough to win that project. What I've enjoyed about aviation is you're developing something that has a degree of permanence, and also there's sort of historic love for aviation that's kind of kept me motivated over the years.
Within aviation over the last 20 years, there's been lots of changes, but there's significant changes afoot now. Are you able to characterise how that's impacted the work that you've done over the last 20 years?
You mentioned sustainability. It's certainly something that our company has really tried to push very hard over the last 4 years. We were involved with a project called Fly Zero, which was a UK government funded project. Our company, plus a few others you might have heard of, like Rolls-Royce, Airbus, GKN, Spirit, EasyJet, and a whole host of others, looking at developing hydrogen-powered aircraft, fundamentally. Our role was to develop the cabins in those. Within the context of that project, what we were able to do was partner with Cranfield University to really examine the relationship between cabins and the environment. And so looking at the kind of full life cycle of all of the products that you see within a cabin, and understanding how it impacted the environment, what technologies we could use in order to reduce that impact in particular ways, what the main challenges were, what the main opportunities were. So off the back of that, we published a paper. Well, it's one of the guiding papers for how the UK invests in aerospace at the moment, which is quite gratifying.
Amazing.
It really kind of set us on this path. I think it gave us a kind of unique understanding of the relationship between cabins and the environment. We did our kind of flagship project in that space so far that we can talk about has been for Air Canada. We were tasked with, here's our fleet, we want to know how it's impacting the environment. Fine, that's a big problem. Not a problem, a great challenge, a wonderful challenge. Yeah. We quickly, we said, right, which of these aircraft are representative of the future?
Yeah.
For us to kind of do an analysis on a 15-year-old, aircraft is probably not super valuable.
Yeah.
However, what makes sense to us is if we look at your two most recent aircraft types, we looked at a narrowbody, the A220, and we looked at a Boeing 787, and these were the two kind of aircraft that were most representative of the way they were going to be operating going forward, and they had all the latest products.
Was there anything that really stuck out that was like, wow, I wasn't expecting to see that?
The thing that kind of surprised me was the multiplier effect on things like carpets that you are replacing very, very frequently. Particularly the aisle carpets, which are kind of soiled and then replaced, soiled and replaced.
How frequently are they replaced?
It's a matter of months, and if somebody's, if something's spilt on it, it's days. It can be gone instantly. So what that means is that you are, for certain things within the cabin, there's quite a kind of fast churn in terms of their consumption.
Do you think that there's a benefit to working with the general public to change their perceptions of what the cabin should be in order to further the aims of sustainability?
That's a question that immediately occurs to a lot of people. There are lots of areas of design where you are having those sorts of trade-offs. My tendency, having designed a lot of things, is that you're looking for the spaces or the ways in which you can align the positives. So rather than
putting up with the stain on the carpet, let's find
a different type of carpet that can be viewed as beneficial and is not problematic in that way. So there's a lot of opportunities to do that within the cabin.
Ben, when you undertake a life cycle assessment of the cabin for somebody like Air Canada, what are the different ways that that data can then be used by teams subsequently?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the package that we handed over at the end of that particular project, it was kind of cut in different ways. We had one level of analysis which showed, in each particular aircraft, which were the products that were quite benign, that maybe could be deprioritised, and which were the ones that really, would have justified some sort of immediate action. We then had a kind of analysis at product level. So within a seat, for example, we did identify which parts were the most problematic, which particular materials, and where they were found. And what that does, it's quite interesting. It enables the different teams within the airline to act either independently as kind of champions of sustainability or together. So if you are a procurement team, say, and you're looking to bring in a next generation of product and you want them to perform better than the previous one, you've got a numerical baseline, and that can be shared with your suppliers and say, look, we've hit these scores here. What we'd like is for you guys to come in 20% lower, for example. For the product team, we have given them a clear understanding of, within a seat, for example, which of the items within that seat are the ones that they could conceivably design out. What could they change different materials? Could they change, the scale of use of a particular material? It kind of empowers them to make some better decisions. And then, we've also, we've provided a model of the maintenance operations and how they impacted the sustainability impacts in each category. So, they were able to see how modification of their procedures would have a positive impact. So, yeah, I think it's quite nice. Within lots of organisations, these different silos they can sometimes act together and they can sometimes act separately. But we've enabled them all or empowered them all to really try and make some positive change.
So you can take this pool of data
Yeah.
and slice it depending upon what your
Exactly.
objectives are and what your department is.
And once you've got that data, once the airlines establish that model, we can then, if 6 months down the line they go, we're thinking of doing this, we can, then take that, tweak the model accordingly, and rerun the analysis to give them a sense of what the impact of particular routes would be. So it's one of these things, once you've done that work, you can then, get more and more value out of it quite easily.
It's only with being able to really audit and understand how and baseline, as you've described, that you can make incremental improvements.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, you're just guessing, aren't you? There's a quote. It's without good data, you're just another person with an opinion.
Right.
And this is what we're trying to counter, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's our approach.
Thanks.